But thank y'all for being here today. My name is Taz Smith. I'm the State Executive Director for the Georgia FSA. We're honored to be able to do this program with our partners, NRCS, Rural Development, NAS, and RMA, and also going to have Georgia Forestry Commission and the Department of Human Behavior Disabilities with us as well, and also honored to have Congressman Austin Scott with us, who's going to be able to provide an update from Washington. The storm has impacted all of us, not you, the producer, but as you know more about that than anything else with the impact the storm has been on the ground. But we've also had our employees that have been impacted as well. And the whole purpose of this meeting today is to give you an opportunity to ask questions of USDA personnel and let us assist you in how to utilize our programs that can assist you in this time. A very important note I want to make is we're here to talk today from USDA point of view on the programs that we have available today. I know there's a lot of conversation about what Congress may do, and we hope that there are going to be some additional assistance that will be coming down the pipe. But today is about what we can do as USDA currently to offer you assistance on the ground. Congressman Scott will be coming up later on, and he may indulge just more on what they may can do in DC. But we're here to talk about what we can do for you, the producer. Just a couple housekeeping notes. Don Kaler's here with Georgia Peanut Commission, and they are, I know a lot of producers could not get here today, but they are streaming this meeting on Facebook, and it'll be on the YouTube page of Georgia Peanut Commission. Also, their website is georgiapeanuts.com. Is that right, Don? georgiapeanuts.com. So if you know anyone that could not be here that would like to get any of this information, please encourage them to go to georgiapeanuts.com and also their Facebook and YouTube pages to check that out. I want to thank the University of Georgia for allowing us to have Tifton campus, for Dr. West and Adam and their teams for allowing us to have this facility today to provide this meeting and sponsoring us today. And we couldn't do it without them. Adam, thank y'all for what y'all are doing with that. And but we're here for you. We're going to be here after the meeting if we can answer any questions. We have a lot of USDA staff here. If you're a USDA staff person, will you stand at this time? Okay, thank y'all. So, these people are here to help you today. So if we don't answer all your questions, please grab one of them. A lot of them work in your communities at your county office level. So please talk to them and ask them questions, because they know more about this stuff than any of us about how to help you in your communities. So without further ado, I'm going to call on Adam Vinovich to come up and he's going to be our moderator to kind of go through the nuts and bolts of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Taz. So I just want to welcome all of you to the University of Georgia Tifton campus. And we understand that this is certainly a difficult time for all of you that have suffered a great deal of loss. And so just want to express Dr. Joe West, our Assistant Dean of the Tifton campus, was unable to be here today, a prior commitment out of state. Dr. Laura Perry Johnson, who is our Associate Dean of Extension, also with a previous commitment. They all, with all of us, our extension agents, our extension specialists, express our well wishes and hope that this information can be useful to you. We appreciate the USDA and all of our speakers that are coming out here today, giving this information, and anything that the University of Georgia can do from cooperative extension. Our county agents certainly on the ground, our specialists on the Tifton campus or in Griffin or in Athens, we urge you to reach out to us for the assistance that you need. Today's session will also be, you see here the video feed. We are recording this and we will be making this available on the internet. So those that could not be here will have an opportunity to see the video, and also those of you that are here will have an opportunity to revisit it again if there's anything that you missed. Again, we hope that this is beneficial to you, and without further ado, I would like to get started With just a bit of a housekeeping note, so we will have a series of presentations, and we are breaking them up into about 3 or 4 presentations each, and then we will have some questions and answers for those speakers, and then we'll move on to another series of presentations with some questions and answers for those as well. We hope to be able to get through all of your questions, but we understand that we do have a lot of presenters today as well, and a lot of information that's here, and so we do ask for your patience in terms of trying to get all of those questions answered. I also want to just call your attention to the back area where there is some additional information related to disaster programs and other assistance information that I urge you, if you have not seen already, to check out and pick up on your way out. So we'll go ahead and get started with our first presentation. So today we have Brett Martin, who's Chief of Farm Programs from the Farm Service Agency. And so if you'll just bear with me while I'm switching slides here, we'll have a little bit of that throughout the day.
Good afternoon. I'm Brett Martin. I'm the Farm Program Chief with the USDA Farm Service Agency. I'm located in Athens, Georgia. And today I want to talk about the existing programs that FSA has to assist producers that have suffered incurred losses due to natural disasters. The programs we have is the first one we have the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Program, NAP. That's FSA's type of crop insurance. A lot of crops we cover with NAP, any crop that the USDA Risk Management Agency doesn't offer insurance coverage through. So primarily a lot of ours is like vegetables. We offer insurance on hay and grazing, things of that sort. Next program is Livestock Indemnity Program. Also the Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, Farm Raised and Fish Program, ELAP. The Tree Assistance Program, the Emergency Conservation Program, and the Emergency Forest Restoration Program. Talk about the eligible cause of loss. All these are what's would be caused by natural disasters. That's when it come into play. Hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, excessive rains, anything of that would prompt one of these programs to be implemented. We'll ask producers what your responsibility to be. Anytime a disaster like that happens, please take pictures of the damage, preferably the date stamp. If they have a date on the pictures that can be used to process your application. Also contact your local FSA county office as soon as possible. If you're not familiar, if you've never dealt with FSA before but has heard about one of our programs, please visit, we have a website, fsa.gov. You can go to that. Also, there's the newfarmers.gov website that provides disaster information, other program information. This website probably developed back during the spring, but a lot of information the USDA, not just FSA, is putting on there to assist producers with programs, also disaster-related producers. Contact the FSA county office with a lot of these programs. FSA does have to make a site visit to your farm and survey the damage. If it's with our non-insured crop disaster program, our NAP program, it runs like insurance. We do have loss adjusters. They would come out, visit your farm, maybe do an appraisal. They would do pretty much like a crop insurance loss adjuster report for FSA. And also try to complete an application as soon as possible as you can get into the office after the disaster. It's better if you come in and report to FSA first before you start doing any type of cleanup or anything. It's preferably if you could do that would be better on you and better on also the office in processing the application. Eligibility requirements, there may be some other eligibility requirements, not just the program itself. Some of the programs I'm going to talk about, the adjusted gross income applies to it. Others also the highly erodible and wetlands determination. If y'all are familiar with the form AD 1026, that's just a standard part of FSA. Some of that may apply to some of these programs. Also be sure and check with your local county office about deadlines for these programs. Some of these programs have different deadlines, so please refer to your county office for more information about that. Payment limitations for the NAP program, the insurance type program, it's $125,000 per producer per crop year. Livestock indemnity program, with the signage of the Bipartisan Budget Act back in February of this year, it took away the payment limitation for the LIP program. It did have $125,000. However, now there's no payment limitation on it. The ELAP program, it's $125,000, but it's also combined. We have another program, and I'm not going to talk about it today because it's due to drought, is the livestock forage program. The ELAP program and LFP, those two payment limits would be combined together, so for $125,000 payment limitation. Our tree assistance program, Bipartisan Budget Act took the payment limitation amount away from it, so it's unlimited right now. Emergency conservation program, by far probably our busiest disaster program. It's $200,000 per person or legal entity per disaster. And lastly, our emergency forest restoration program, that has a limitation of $500,000 per person per disaster. I talked about NAP. Like I said, it's FSA's version of crop insurance. We offer almost anything that the Risk Management Agency does not offer federal crop insurance on. Of course, it has to be due to a natural disaster for a person to get eligible to receive a payment through the program. And on this, it's buying an insurance policy, so you must have had obtained coverage before the disaster. You must have purchased that insurance coverage before a disaster happened. And who is eligible? Any landowner, tenant, sharecropper that shares in the risk of producing the crop, that they have an interest in the crop like that. Eligible crops, they're commercially grown crops. They're grown for food, livestock consumption, fiber, renewable energy. Also value loss crops such as aquaculture, Christmas trees, turf grass used for sod, also seed crops. And like I said, there are some time constraints when you do have a disaster and you occur and you have coverage under the NAP program. You will be required to file a notice of loss. So immediately when the disaster comes apparent to you, then please contact your county office and make arrangements to come in and file a notice of loss, and then for FSA to send a loss adjuster out to review your claim. Next program is Livestock Indemnity Program. Basically, this is paid for livestock that died due to a natural disaster. Of course, some types of livestock covered is beef cattle, dairy cattle, chickens, goats, and other type livestock. By far, the most we deal with here in Georgia is cattle and goats due to lightning, but you know, the hurricane, it will cover losses under it. Also, we'll mention that the producer must have legally owned the livestock the day of the disaster. And also contract growers are eligible. I know there's been reported approximately 94, maybe the number is higher now, of chicken houses lost due to the hurricane. Contract growers are eligible to apply for the program. We would have to have a copy of your contract, also beginning and ending inventories, but contract growers are eligible to apply for the program. Of course, you would work with your local county office and they would assist you in processing your claim. Last program is the ELAP program, and this is kind of what's not covered under the Livestock Indemnity Program. Then this provides assistance to eligible producers for commercial use of livestock feed losses, such as if you had a hay barn, you know, with round bales in there that's going to be used to feed your cattle for the winter. It gets destroyed during a storm. We have had situations where there were some barns near rivers, and had bagged feed stored in there to feed the livestock, comes in and floods, destroys the barn, destroys the feed, so that could be eligible for a payment under the ELAP program. Also, honeybee losses, colony losses, and the bee losses. I do know we're going to have one county in southeast Georgia that's going to file for this because the hives are located on the edge of the field near the tree line. Trees fell, destroyed the hives, so that would be eligible under the ELAP program. Also, farm-raised fish can be eligible. We don't have a lot of activity in Georgia with that, but those can be eligible. You know, long as I said it was due to a natural disaster adversely affecting the operation. We'll talk about the tree assistance program. This provides financial assistance to qualified orchards and nursery tree growers to replant or rehabilitate eligible trees, bushes, and vines damaged by natural disasters. And eligible losses, like I said, it has to be lost due to a natural disaster. With this, and I'm going to use pecans for example, we had a lot of activity with this, especially from Hurricane Irma. But on this, and pecans did get a special program later on, but normally under the regular TAP, when an orchard's affected, it must have sustained at least 15% damaged or destroyed. That's a 15% national level. Then on top, there's another state level of 2%. So you'd have to have like a 17% either trees destroyed or damaged to be eligible for the TAP program. And the eligible bushes of vines like annual crop also has to be for a commercial purpose. Also nursery trees can be eligible, whether they're in-ground or potted trees. Ornamental and fruit, nut, and Christmas trees, they're eligible for the TAP program. And the eligible producers, you had to own the tree, bushes, or vines at the time of the disaster, and there's a replacement within 12 months from the date the application is approved. I believe there is some extensions on this because you run into problems with especially widespread disasters like occurring now where it's hard to get trees to replant. So there are some provisions for extensions on these applications. But you would have to work with your local county office to gain one of these extensions. The acreage limitation is not to exceed 1,000 acres annually. That used to be 500 acres to earlier this year, and then it has increased to 1,000 acres is the limit. All right, the Emergency Conservation Program. We have a lot of activity with this program in Georgia when there's hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, excessive rain, but we have several different practices within this, and I'll describe them in just a moment. But this provides funding to assist in rehabilitating farmland that was damaged by a natural disaster. And the eligibility, once a disaster occurs, you need to contact your local FSA office. They will come out and do a site visit. I mean, it depends on how much damage that's determined. There's some practices that FSA does themselves. There's other practices that our sister agency, Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS, does the technical work for us on it. And the eligibility also determines on the type and extent of the damage and how bad the land is impaired or endangered, affecting the productivity of the land, and if it's unusual damage, and then if it's so costly for the producer or landowner to repair that federal assistance is needed, then the Emergency Conservation Program is available. Producers must have at least $2,000 worth of damage. If you're a limited resource producer, you must have at least $500 worth of damage. And the practices, we have one for debris removal from farmland. By far our biggest is pecan orchards affected by hurricanes. We help remove trees, remove limbs, get debris out, basically just get it back to where they can start farming. You can start, I guess, performing regular farming activities in your orchard. Also with grading, shaping, leveling of land, if there's a lot of erosion, excessive erosion caused by a natural disaster, then we have a practice for that. Restoring livestock fences, we do provide for that, to replace or repair a fence that has been damaged. We have a good bit of activity with this practice as well with restoring fences. Producers are paid by a linear foot for the cost of repair. And the Emergency Conservation Program, it's a cost share program, which FSA would pay up to 75% of cost share, not to exceed. We do have limitations set on certain practices and components that all go into repairing your land, repairing your fence, cleanup, but for the most part it can be up to a 75% cost share. Of course, you would be responsible for the other 25% of the out-of-pocket cost. And our program that we have, it's probably been probably about an 8-year-old program. It's fairly new compared to ECP. ECP deals primarily with cropland, whether it be a row cropland, pasture, that's what you're looking at with ECP. With EFRP, the Emergency Forest Restoration Program, this is for forest land that has been impacted by a disaster, just like ECP, but we're dealing with forest land here. And it has to be non-industrial private forest land, meaning like primarily it's targeted towards smaller landowners. And I mean, you're not a large company that has further processing capability like a paper mill or a chip mill or anything like that. It's just a private forest landowner, and it will help you to restore. And what ECP does, it will help you go in and clean up and also replant. And our technical service provider on that is Georgia Forestry Commission. And we appreciate the work they do, because I know they have staff challenges just like FSA. But the land eligibility, it should have had to have existing tree cover before the natural disaster. Like I said, it must be owned by a non-industrial private forest land group. And then if the land was not replanted, cleaned up, it would impair endanger natural resources, such as would cause excessive erosion, be detrimental to wildlife, and it would materially affect the future of the land. And practices, like I said, we would help replant, whether it's hardwood, softwoods. There's several different type practices, like a upland, bottomland, hard and softwood. There's mixed forest. There's also a longleaf practice that is available also. And besides replanting, it will help with debris removal, herbicides, insecticides, establishing fire breaks, also prescribed burning and equipment use. It would be, Georgia Forestry Commission would make a visit to your land and make a needs determination of what type trees are beneficial to replant, also what practices are needed to help replant those trees. And that concludes my presentation on the programs I have. These are programs that are existing, that FSA has, that are available for producers. The Emergency Conservation Program and the Emergency Forest Restoration Program, those are requested by your local county committees. They come up to me through our state office in Athens, and then I'll send it on to our national office, and they'll provide approval to implement the program. Now, ECP, EFRP, we will have an established sign-up. Each county office, they say, 30 to 60 days. They'll establish a sign-up period. If you dealt with FSA, I hope you're all registered with your registered to receive information by text. Also by email, we have what's called Gov Delivery, and it will send you out bulletins with information. It will notify you if a sign-up is occurring. The other programs, they're ongoing, so you would just need to contact the county office when you incur loss on that as well. So with that, thank y'all.
Thank you, Brett. So the next presentation that we will have is from Dean Lewis, who is a farm loan specialist with the Farm Service Agency. After Dean's presentation, we will have some question and answer period for FSA. You can use this. Forward. Yes. Okay, that should work. Give it a try. Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Dean Lewis. I'm a farm loan specialist with the Farm Service Agency in Athens, Georgia, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the emergency loan program that we have and a little bit about some servicing that we could have for existing borrowers. The agency has several different types of direct loans and guaranteed loans, but I'm going to concentrate on the emergency loan program. The purpose of the loan is to help producers recover from production and physical losses due to natural disasters. The loan funds can be used to restore or replace essential property, purchase replacement trees, and expenses necessary to complete the plan for rehabilitation and reestablish income-producing trees, pay all or part of production costs associated with the disaster year, pay essential family living expenses, reorganize the farming operation, and we can also refinance debts in certain circumstances. We have two basic types of losses. Physical losses or losses to real estate, such as the poultry houses that were damaged. Chattel losses can be to equipment, livestock, stored crops, harvested crops that were damaged, and to fruit and nut-bearing trees. And then production losses are to growing crops that were damaged by the disaster. Some of the eligibility requirements, basically the eligibility requirements, if you're familiar with our loan program, are basically the same as they are for direct loans, other than the fact that you had to have a qualifying disaster. Some of those eligibility requirements are that they be the owner or the operator of land located in a county that was declared a disaster or a contiguous county, or an established family farmer, and has sufficient farming and ranching experience, are citizens or permanent residents of the United States, and have suffered at least a 30% loss in crop production or a physical loss to livestock products, real estate, and chattel property. You have to have acceptable credit. You are unable to receive credit from commercial sources. Can provide collateral to secure the loan and have repayment ability for the loan. Some of the collateral requirements for the loans, they differ based on the purpose. All loans must be fully collateralized. The specific type of collateral may vary depending on the loan purpose, repayment ability, and the individual circumstances of the applicant. So there are different things that we have to look at as far as collateral is concerned. The loan limits. Producers can borrow up to 100% of the actual production or physical losses to a maximum amount of $500,000. That's the loan limit. Rates and terms, the current interest rate on an emergency loan is 3.75. The repayment schedules are based on useful life of the security, repayment ability, and the type of loss. Loans for crop, livestock, and non-real estate losses are normally repaid within 1 to 7 years, depending on the loan purpose, repayment ability, and the collateral available as loan security. In special circumstances, terms can be up to 20 years. Loans for physical losses to real estate are normally repaid in 30 years, and in circumstances, repayment may be made over a maximum of 40 years. At a minimum, as far as repayment, we have some flexibility. We can have unequal installments and so forth, interest-only payments, but at a minimum, all accrued interest must be paid each year. To apply for a loan, you apply through your local county office that services the loan area. Applications for emergency loans must be received within 8 months of the county's disaster designation. Thought I'd touch a minute on, we do have a provision for rehabilitation and reestablishment of fruit, nut-bearing, and income-producing trees. EM loans may be made for rehabilitation and/or reestablishment of fruit, nut-bearing, and income-producing trees and plants subject to eligibility and general loan requirements. The purpose of the EM loan is to enable the applicant to restore damaged orchards, groves, and income-producing trees and plants to their normal production. Loans will be approved only if reestablishment or rehabilitation can be completed over a period not to exceed 5 years. If additional funds are needed and a longer recovery period is required, the applicant must demonstrate from the outset that they are able to obtain additional financing or resources from either their own cash flow or from other creditors. Eligible enterprises, trees planted and cultivated for commercial production purposes which have income producing potential for more than 5 years. So I would say all pecan producers, I'd say blueberries would fall into this category, Christmas trees and so forth. So, peach trees, if there was any damage to peach trees. Non-eligible enterprises that we could not help in this case were trees and plants grown for commercial purposes which will be harvested and sold within 5 years from the date of establishment. And in this case, this would be nursery stock, ornamental plants and so forth, raspberries and strawberries. Okay, that's just a brief overview of the EM disaster program. Thought I'd mention for a minute some loan servicing options we have available to our existing borrowers. First off, I would suggest that you need to talk to your loan officers, regardless if it's FSA or banks or farm credits. Get in touch with them and keep them informed as to what's happening, and we'll try to do what we can to help you out. But we have a program called Disaster Set Aside, and this is for when borrowers located in designated disaster areas are unable to make their scheduled payments on any FSA debt. FSA is authorized to consider to set aside one payment to allow the operation to continue. So what we do is, if you qualify for this program, we set the annual installment that you have and put it on the back of the note. We don't add any length of time to the note. Example of a 7-year note, it'll be a 7-year note. You'll just have another payment added on the 7th year. I guess we'll deal with that down the road. The application deadlines for the disaster set-aside program are just like the EM loan, 8 months from the date of the designation. And a complete application for debt set-aside consists of the following items: a written request for debt set-aside signed by all parties liable for the debt, actual production, income, and expense records for the production and marketing period in which the disaster occurred, unless the agency already has this information, and the other items as required based on the individual applications. Eligibility to receive the debt set aside will primarily be determined based on the following criteria. As a direct result of the disaster, the producer has the inability to make the payments. The borrower must have operated a farm or ranch in the designated area, and the borrower must have acted in good faith with FSA on their existing loans. Borrower must not be in non-monetary default. Borrowers must be current or not more than 90 days delinquent on their existing loans. And but there's a little problem with this slide, but what it should say is no loan to be set aside may have a repayment term of less than 2 years. So in other words, if it's an annual operating loan, it won't be, we can't help you with this debt set aside program. It's only for term type loans. The loan must not be accelerated, and after the debt set aside is completed, the borrower will be current on all their existing FSA loans. The borrower's FSA debt has not been restructured since the disaster. These again, eligibility requirements: the amount set aside will not exceed 1 year's FSA payments. No loan may receive more than one disaster set aside unless it is later restructured, and the borrower must be able to develop a positive cash flow projection for the coming year. So that's one type of servicing that we can offer to our existing borrowers. So if you know you're going to have difficulty making your payments, go in and see your loan officer and ask for an application to apply for debt set aside. Now, each payment set aside must be repaid, again, and I mentioned this earlier, each payment set aside must be repaid prior to the final maturity date of the note. Any principal set aside will continue to accrue interest until it is repaid. Okay, that's debt disaster set-aside program. Now we have what we call primary loan servicing, which is all the other servicing options we have available to borrowers. Normally that is offered to borrowers that default on their loans are 90 days past due. But if you are in a situation like we are now and you know you're going to have difficulty making your payments, you can go ahead and contact us, and we can go ahead and see if we can consider restructuring your loans, re-amortizing, deferrals, and so forth. So the point I'm trying to make here is don't wait until the note becomes due. If you know you're going to have difficulty making the payment, go ahead and contact us, and let's see what we can do to try to help you. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
And so to start things off with this group, we will have Terrence Rudolph from NRCS. I believe you don't have any slides, is that correct?
Yeah, I think there's one.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Terrence Rudolph, and I'm the State Conservationist for USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. So I'm up here to give a quick overview. My program manager, Ms. Katura Wright, is going to come up and she's going to give a presentation to go more in depth into the services that NRCS has to offer. As part of NRCS' effort to help in this disaster relief, we will be offering 2 separate special EQIP signups. The first sign-up would be to help address the animal mortality, and then that would be involved in the 13 designated counties that has been latest declared disaster declaration. The second sign-up will address all of the other resource concerns that has been addressed by the hurricane. So again, we're going to have 2 separate sign-ups. One is to address animal mortality. That's very important because we want to make sure that we address all pathogen and disease right away, so that will handle like your burials and burning and things of that nature. So we want to get that done pretty quickly. And secondly, we would have an additional sign-up to address whatever resource concern that has impacted your farm due to the storm or due to any disaster. So I just want you to know that we are here for you. That is the mission of NRCS, is to help people help the land. But we can't really do that without collaboration from all of you, our farmers and ranchers, as well as all of our partners and stakeholders that's here present today. So don't feel that you are alone, because we're all in it together. Usually Mother Nature teaches us a bright lesson, that you know who your friends are in the time of need. So I would truly say that we are here as one USDA, and we are your friend today, and moving forward until we rebuild. So we're here to help. Don't feel that you're alone, but we are here to help. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my program manager, Ms. Couture Wright, and she's going to go more into depth of the program to offer you what's available. Thank you.
How does this work? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So, we'll start with if you actually had damage from Hurricane Michael. So some of the things that we could possibly help with would be livestock mortality, cross fencing, damaged trees, loss of vegetation, and excessive erosion. So we have experienced conservationists at each one of our service centers across the state that are there to help you. We don't offer loans, but we do offer technical assistance as well as financial assistance. Some of the things we basically offer, this would be EQIP, which is where we offer conservation practices, stewardship payments. I think some of you guys are familiar with CSP, the Conservation Stewardship Program, also our easement program, and then we have some special project programs as well. And then EWP, which is the Emergency Watershed Protection, and I'll talk about that one at the end. So in response to Hurricane Michael, right now we're declared, I think the President declared 6 counties to begin with, and then FEMA declared another 7. So right now we're offering assistance to those 13. That's Baker, Crisp, Decatur, Dougherty, Earl, Grady, Lee, Miller, Mitchell, Seminole, Terrell, Thomas, and Worth. So right now the sign-up is for those 13 counties. We announced it last week. The batching period is going to end on October 26th, and then we'll announce another one, and that one will end on November 16th. And after those 2, we are going to offer some additional ones. Particularly, we're probably going to target some of the orchards and tree planting and some irrigation practices as well. So typically, like I said earlier, we could talk about prescribed grazing, cross-fencing, watering facilities, solar water pumps, as there were damage to any of those, reseeding some of the eroded areas. The main thing is we want you guys to come into the office and actually sign an application. That's the main thing. And please take pictures as well of any damage that you may have had. And so for the emergency part of this program, we're going to offer emergency animal mortality, and that's mainly for the birds. We want those off the ground as soon as possible. So some of the options are open air burning, forced air incineration, in-house composting for those, outside windrow composting. Some folks are burying, as I understand, and then disposal at some of your landfills if they're approved. Another practice is short-term storage, and that's if you've got waste that's wet, you can actually store it on the outside. I think it's a 90-day period that you can actually store it on the outside, so that's what this practice actually assists with. And then clearing and snagging, if you had any banks that were, there were some issues there, then we're going to help out with that as well. And then if you're interested in applying, so basically we need you guys to come in the office. If you're an ag producer, this is no different than regular EQIP. Make sure that you own or you lease the land and you can actually show control of that. Comply with the adjusted gross income. Make sure you're in compliance with HEL. And we're actually going to develop a plan for you. That's why it's important for you guys to come in, and our conservationists are actually going to come out to your place and actually do a complete plan with you. So first, you're going to have to come in and actually sign that application. You'll go to FSA and you'll develop your farm number and track number. Most of you guys are probably already producers with us or with FSA, so a lot of this stuff is already taken care of. And so once all of that is done, then you're going to set up an appointment and we'll actually come out to your place. We're going to walk the whole place with you guys and actually see the damage that you have out there. There's a ranking process that's going to go through, and then if you're approved for funding, then you'll sign a contract, and then that's when work will actually commence. So depending on the practice, you may or may not need a design. Just make sure that we were in contact with us before you actually start that work. And then once the work is done, we'll come out, check it out. Then you guys will sign a request for payment, and then you'll be reimbursed for that work. The other program that we have available right now is emergency watershed protection. This one is mainly for cities and towns. They can actually apply on your behalf. So it's mainly for debris removal. So if you had any of that in some of your streams and stuff around here, then they can actually apply on your behalf. And we have some information at our back table on that one. And so again, just please come into the office and sign an application, and we are there to assist. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So our next speaker will be Joyce White, State Director of Rural Development. Joyce does not have a PowerPoint here, and so.
Thank you for allowing me to be here today, and I wish that there was more that we could do to know that you've been in our prayers, and just because a lot of us are from Athens or Atlanta doesn't mean that we're not with you in our thoughts and in our prayers. At our back table, you will find information as well as our area director for this area. She reports out of the Tifton office, and her name is Deborah Bell Dyson, as well as Al Burns. Many of you may know the two of them, but they are back there and are very knowledgeable of the products that we have that can help you in this time of need. The phone number to call would be 229-382-0273, and that's 229-382-0273, and just ask for Deborah or Al, and either one of them can help you. But the assistance that we can offer from rural development is housing. If you know of someone that's been displaced, then we have multifamily housing units that are available for folks who are out of their home. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and actually some 5-bedroom homes. Also, if you have or if you know of someone who has a housing loan through USDA Rural Development, there is a moratorium that can be placed where that family doesn't have to pay their house payment for up to 6 months. So if you go into the Tifton office, or if you there again call that number and ask for Deborah or Al, they can help you with the paperwork. If you are a business that has been destroyed or harmed, damaged, this doesn't apply to growers, producer, but if you have a business that has been harmed, there are loans and grants available. There is a guaranteed loan available where you just go to your bank and ask for the USDA loan program, and they can guide you, and we can try and replace some of what you've lost. For first responders, we do have grants that are available for equipment and for police cars, fire trucks, that sort of thing, if there have been losses in that area. So we have first responder grants available that can be very helpful. If your community, and I'm sure it has been damaged, if you have a police department, city hall, library, medical clinic, any damage to those community facilities, we also have loans to help replace those buildings. So while we don't have as much as the other programs, just know that we are willing to try and find the resources for you and work with you to get you the help that you need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So our next speaker is from Risk Management Agency. Davina Lee is Director from the Valdosta Regional Office.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to come and speak as well. I'm with the USDA Risk Management Agency, and our agency handles the federal crop insurance program. Again, as the speaker from FSA mentioned, crop insurance is what you have in place prior to events like this, and hopefully those of you that are in the farming community have some type of crop insurance, whether it's through RMA or through the FSA program. Just wanted to mention our programs are, we have a contract with our insurance companies, who in turn have contracts with insurance agents that sell and service the products for you. We have been in constant contact with them as well to make sure that they have the adequate resources to come out and survey the damage and inspect the different crops and speak with the farmers. We have been unfortunate in the region to be in our second hurricane with Hurricane Florence, but I have been assured that the adjusters can come out to your property. So hopefully by now you've already made contact with your insurance company or your agent so they can come out and assess and inspect. I would encourage you, if you have not contacted your company yet, to do so immediately. While we have emergency procedures out there that waive the 72-hour notice that you have to provide, it's still best to go ahead and get someone out there so they can help you take pictures and survey your damage so that you can begin the cleanup process. If you have not, I would suggest that you not do anything, don't remove anything, don't clean up anything until somebody has come out to look at your property so that your claims are not delayed or any type of adverse decisions are made because you've done some work prior to somebody actually coming out and visiting you. As I mentioned, we do have some emergency procedures that are in place so that the companies can go ahead and process claims as they get them so that, it doesn't delay anything or delay any payments that are due to you. For those who have not purchased crop insurance or are curious about the crop insurance program, we do have a website that has quite a bit of information. Right now, I just wanted to mention that with our insurance policies, we have over 300 insurance policies with varying types of coverage, from yield protection to revenue protection. It covers several different causes of loss in general. It covers adverse weather conditions, earthquake, failure of irrigation supply that's caused by a insured peril. We also cover insect and disease damage, but again, it has to be something that you have tried to control or have good farming practices in order to mitigate some of those losses. We have, for the crop insurance portion, it is a unique program in that we subsidize. We have two options right now. We have the catastrophic coverage level, which is completely subsidized by the federal government. However, there is a $300 administrative fee per crop per county that you'll need to pay. We also have the buy-up coverage option, which covers anywhere from 50% up to 85%, depending on the crop that you cover, the crop that you grow. And it covers up to 100% of the price election. So those are some options that you have for crop insurance. We do have several policies, as mentioned. If there is a policy that is not offered in your county, but we do have the program somewhere else in the state or in our nation, we can write written agreements for you so that you can get coverage. We also have a program called the Whole Farm Revenue Program, which is an umbrella type of policy that will allow you to cover several specialty crops under one insurance policy. So if you're a diverse farmer and you have vegetables and you also have traditional row crops, you can get crop insurance under this whole farm policy to cover all of that under one policy. We do have deadlines and sign-up dates. All of the policies have to be purchased or any changes made by the sales closing date, and they vary by the different types of insurance programs that we have. So I would suggest just contacting an insurance agent. If you don't know of one in your area, you can go to farmers.gov, and they have a link to our website, rma.usda.gov, and it'll give you a link to show you what companies and insurance agents are located in your region. Again, I thank you for this opportunity, and if there are any questions at the end, I'll be glad to take any. Thank you.
Thank you. So our last speaker of this particular group will be the Regional Director of the National Agricultural Statistics Service, Jim Ewing.
Good afternoon, everyone. When I was sitting over here, I was thinking, well, I really wish we were getting together to celebrate record production, record prices, and something more encouraging than talking about the hurricane and devastation. I want you all to know that me personally, my counterparts from the USDA, our heart goes out to you. We're talking real lives, real economic income here, real things that are happening to y'all. I just want you all to know that. We're going to talk a little bit about what NASS data we have. Whenever something like this happens, people are always calling and say, what do you know? How bad is it? Everybody wants a number. They want a number right here, right now. We NASS, we don't deal in opinions. We don't deal in just ideas. We do the surveys. We actually get the numbers and publish those numbers as we always do. So I want to talk a little bit about what we do have, though, that may be helpful, and then talk about some of the stuff that will be coming down the road. So first, let's talk about the hurricane itself. You all know this. A couple of things about this map. This is 2017 planted acres by crops. That red there, that's cotton. The blue would be peanuts. So this is what was planted last year. You're thinking, geez, Jim, we don't care about what was planted last year. We're talking about this year. I get that, but that's what I've got from satellite imagery is last year's crop. You all know the same thing I do. That's still the same crops. We still have peanuts and cotton in that swath. No two ways about that. The acreages are different, but there's a couple things we can take away from that. Let's go to this next slide here. That may help. Cotton. These are, again, last year's numbers, but when you look at the high wind speed, that 64 knots, you had 22% in that swath. But the big number is, by golly, you had just about all the cotton grown in Georgia is in that wind swath when you go to the 34 plus knot wind speed. Same with the peanuts. Bottom line is, just about all the peanuts and cotton in Georgia were in that 34 knot wind swath, 34 knot or greater wind swath. That's the big takeaway from that. Think about that. All the peanuts and cotton in Georgia at least had 34 knots or more wind blowing on them. What else do we know? These are the current data. Current data as of October 1. Lots happened since October 1. We get that. We understand that. But this is what we had. You all know the same thing I know. We had a good crop coming in on October 1. It was looking good for peanuts. It was looking good for cotton, and pecans were looking good. All the crops were looking really well. Things have changed, and that's what our job is, to assess that change. This is, every week we do what we call the Georgia Crop Progress and Condition Report. This is real-time data coming out every week. This is what you have here the last 2 weeks. The cotton was progressing very well, but you do see a big jump in cotton harvested. We had 12% that was harvested last week, or as of 10/7, 10/14, that jumped to 20%. You all know the same thing I know here too. We've had a lot of open weather since the hurricane. There's a lot of harvest going on. That 20%, which will come out, the next report will come out at 4 o'clock today. We're expecting a significant jump in that 20%. People are getting their cotton out of the fields. No two ways about that. Peanuts harvested, that's a little bit different. Don's sitting right here in front of me. He knows that same thing I know. Folks are trying to dig, trying to get that to the, trying to get it dug and then trying to get it harvested. But then there's struggle with the buying points. Are those open and ready to take those peanuts? We know that too. Pecan harvested, you guys who grow pecans, it's tough. I mean, you're just getting into the harvest and the hurricane came and there's just stuff all over the place. We get that too. Something else too on that I wanted to touch base on. Let's see here. Our cotton in particular, 54% of the cotton last week was in poor or very poor condition, meaning that after the hurricane, what we're hearing is there's a lot of bad cotton out there left. So that's over half of what was remaining to be harvested was in that poor to very poor category. So that's significant information too. Looking forward. Okay, so what do we do now? Like I said, our next crop weather report, our weekly crop and progress report comes out today at 4 o'clock. I wish I had those numbers for you right here. That'd be good information. It's available on our website and will be right there at 4 o'clock. The next crop production report comes out November 8th. The key to this is, you saw those numbers for October 1. This is going to be as of November 1. This will be the first assessment we have after the hurricane, just to see what our cotton production is looking like, what our peanut production is looking like. Some of you may not know this, but we're getting that information from all you all. We contact the farmers and ranchers here in Georgia to get that data. We are going to be starting that data collection the 31st of October, 1st of November, 2nd of November. So when that enumerator, that data collector comes and talks to you, I know you're busy, I know you're swamped, you got many things on your mind. Go ahead and take a minute or two to answer those questions so we get a better picture of what's going on, so we get a better handle of how things are. The other thing, we got is annual vegetable production coming out in February. The next pecan report will come out in January, where we'll begin to get those assessments. The bottom line is, this was alluded to earlier, our elected leadership is going to be making some decisions. The better data they have, the better information they have, the better decisions they're going to make. So it's up to all of us to help get the best, very best information we can. Anyway, that's all I've got. Again, I wanted to touch base on the hurricane, the data that we've got, and I want you all to know that I appreciate all that you all are doing. Growing our food and fiber is no easy thing, and I appreciate what you all are up to. Thanks again.
So I want to call up our last set of speakers before we have Congressman Scott. So we have Scott Griffin, Paxton Poitevin, and Jennifer Dunn. Please make your way up to the stage.
I have one slide.
You do have a slide, okay. I didn't know if we had it here.
Huge presentation.
Was it up here?
Hurricane Michael damage map.
Very good. Okay, so our first speaker right now is going to be Scott Griffin, Forest Management Chief with the Georgia Forestry Commission.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. On a personal note, I want to echo the sentiment that you all have been in my personal prayers, and I do believe that, at the end of the day, with God's help, we'll come out of this stronger and more resilient than ever. So just want to start out with that. But a couple of introductions to make with the Forestry Commission. I got a few people that are in attendance today. Our Director, Chuck Williams, is here. We have Alexandra Ford, Ryan Phillips, and Chad Pritchett. They're all right down front here, so we will be available after the meeting to answer any kind of specific questions. But I think I heard a question earlier about timber assessments and maybe timber surveys, and that's one thing we've been working on for the day after the hurricane hit. We've done a timber damage assessment. We went in and we put in plots and did damage assessments on about a 3 square mile grid over the entire area. We surveyed about 4.5 million acres of timber for damage. We looked at 4 different categories, and the map you see there on the screen was produced from that assessment. And there was 4 categories of damage. We had light, moderate, severe, and catastrophic. And most of that damage was tied to wind speed, of course, where the hurricane came into the state and the winds were over 100 miles an hour is where you find that catastrophic and severe damage. And, of course, a lot of corresponding damage to the timber. We had a total impact area. If you see there on the map, those those light and moderate colors, including the catastrophic and severe, covers an area of 2.4 million acres. So a large area was impacted. The total dollar value of that impact to the timber in that area was $374 million worth of timber that was impacted, damaged, destroyed by the hurricane. And just to kind of quantify that for you, that's about 18 million tons of timber. And to further quantify that, that's about 720,000 tractor-trailer truckloads of timber. So a lot of timber was damaged, about 58% pine to about 42% hardwood. We did produce a detailed report that is available at gatrees.org. When you go to the website, there's some pictures that scroll across the top. The first picture says something about storm damage resources, I believe it is. If you click on that, you'll find the report as well as other documents that should be helpful to you as you move forward with your forested properties. So we came up with like a three-prong approach to handling storm damage from this hurricane to your timber. The three things are assess, salvage, and restore. So assess, that's where the Forestry Commission can hopefully be of help to you. We can come in and help you assess your timber. You see there on the map, there's a lot of timber that was in the light to moderate category. You know, you probably don't need a whole lot of help when all your trees are broken off at 10 feet doing an assessment. That's pretty straightforward. But where you run into the light and moderate damage, there's an assessment that would be needed to determine, do we move forward with this stand through some kind of damage salvage, or do we go in and we cut the whole stand and start over? So we are willing, we have foresters that are available to help make those assessments. What we saw in general is that the higher density stands, that would be the ones with more trees per acre, they fared well. Or they fared better than those more open stands, but down in that severe and catastrophic area, it didn't really matter what it was when those winds were that high. But just in general, those fared better. What we saw was a lot of leaning trees. We saw a lot of broken stems. We saw a lot of broken tops. We saw a lot of trees that were blown over. And the assessment would come up, like I said, with some kind of harvest type. What are we going to do here? Are we going to try to salvage and move forward this stand, and are we going to cut it all? And a lot of it depends on your objective. If you're more interested in wildlife, then you can tolerate a lower stand density than if you're trying to grow timber. Also in the assessment would be your tax considerations. If you had timber damage from this storm, it would be considered a casualty loss. And we would advise you to talk with a competent tax professional with that, but just in general, your casualty loss would be the lesser of your basis in the timber or the reduction in the fair market value. So you kind of have to play around with those numbers to see which one is less, but if you've held the timber for a longer period of time and you've had harvest on that tract, you probably have very little basis in that timber. So your loss there is going to be minimal because it's the lesser of the two. All right, the second prong is salvage. Your number one goal should be to move forward with salvage immediately if it's needed. As soon as that tree is severed from the stump, it begins to deteriorate. And that's cut with a chainsaw or whatever. It starts to deteriorate, so the clock starts ticking. So what we've done at the commission, we worked with the governor's office, which there was an executive order that came out before the storm to allow movement overweight loads of supplies, which we found out did include timber. That executive order, or a new order, is going to be, if not already, Director, is that new order out yet? Okay, we haven't seen the new order yet, but there's one that runs through November the 6th. That allows loggers to move loads of wood up to 95,000 pounds. I checked this morning, the permits are issued through the Department of Public Safety, and there's around 200 permits that had been issued since that came out, so a good bit of use there. And like I say, the clock starts ticking with the salvage. You've got about 4, 5, 6 months to do the harvest, and it depends on the product that you're trying to harvest. That window gets shorter with some of those higher value products such as veneer, saw timbers. You've got 3 or 4 months depending on the weather and that sort of thing. So, if there is any kind of silver lining in this, it is that we're going into the dormant season with the timber. The temperatures are up, so that salvage window may be increased a bit. It may be longer if the root ball's still in the ground, so if the tree's blown over but you still have roots in the ground, that would give you more time for a salvage as well. Kind of the drop dead on salvage and timber is when the bark starts slipping off the tree. That's when pretty much it's not useful for any of the product classes, including pulpwood or oriented strand board. The problems we run into with salvage, don't want to, just being honest, you've got a market that's flooded with wood. You have bad logging conditions. That's hard, it's slow go, and you farmers, you understand the cost and all that. Well, loggers have those costs, and their model is to produce the high number of loads per day, so that comes into effect there. And also unseen defects in the tree. So that tree's been swaying, it's twisted. You have fiber damage inside the tree, so buyers are not as willing to take such a risk on those trees for those higher value products, which is what we all want. Prices can be up to 10 to 50% less during these storm damage events, or maybe even more. We heard some figures in an email today that was even less. But one thing we're going to do, well, before I say that, if you move forward with a timber sale, we do recommend you hire a registered consulting forester to help you with that sale. There's multiple benefits of doing that. One is, they're handling other sales, so maybe they could help you logistically with your salvage, and then just knowing what the amount of wood and trying to get top dollar for it. We do have a meeting tomorrow with some of the industry leaders in the area, and the discussion is going to be on salvage. So there are people in the forest products industry who are interested in what they can do to help landowners. So that's going to take place tomorrow. Excited about that to see what can come out of it. The third prong of the way to handle this is restore. And we've talked about the Emergency Forest Restoration Program. The Forestry Commission, we are the planners on for that program, and if you do enroll, we will eventually come out and write a plan for the restoration of that forest. The other part of restoration would be to monitor. If you're going to leave a stand of trees and you're going to remove some of the trees, but you're going to leave others, those trees are still standing, but they did have root damage, they did sway, and there's things that could happen to those trees down the road. Chad Pritchett, the regional forester that's here today, he just showed me a picture of Ips pine bark beetles that were already in one of the trees that fell and hit the Americas office, and it's still got the root ball in the ground partially. So be vigilant regarding pine bark beetles in your timber. So, that's the three-prong attack: assess, salvage, restore. Just want to make you aware of another meeting that's coming up Thursday of this week. It's going to be at the Decatur County Administrative Office in Bainbridge. That's this Thursday at 2 p.m. and it's going to be a little bit more of a forestry-focused meeting where we'll get more in depth about salvage, about restoring those areas, we'll have some people there from Farm Service Agency to talk about EFRP in more detail. So if you know anybody in those areas that might benefit from that, please tell them. That's Thursday, this Thursday at 2 p.m., Decatur County Administrative Office in Bainbridge. And plug our website one more time, gatrees.org. There's a link on the front page with a lot of documents we put on there, such as links to tax websites and those sort of things that would help you as you move forward with managing the timber. But please call on the Forestry Commission. That's what we're here for, to help you get through this process. So thanks for having me here today.
Thank you. So our next speaker is from Southwest Georgia Farm Credit. Paxton Poinevent is the Chief Executive Officer.
Good afternoon. I'll be pretty quick because I think there's only one place worse than being in front of lunch on an agenda, and that's being in front of the U.S. elected representative at a disaster meeting. So anyway, appreciate everybody showing up. Very sorry to hear what everyone's going through and see what everyone's going through. The gentleman asked about the elected officials, and there are plenty of representatives here. I saw Charles White from Senator Perdue's office, representation from Congressman Bishop's office, Jody Redding from Senator Isaacson's office, Representative Austin Scott here. So plenty of elected officials here, and we're very appreciative of that and very appreciative of UGA putting this meeting on in such a quick notice. Like Adam mentioned, my name is Paxton Porter, and I'm a Southwest Georgia Farm Credit. Part of the Farm Credit system. Obviously, we operate in 21 counties in Southwest Georgia. As you can see from this map, it was an area that was hit pretty hard. The red colored is the areas that were declared disaster for individuals, and the yellow being the area that's declared disaster for public municipalities. And again, we operate right there in the corner, so we're vested in this. So how many lenders do we have in the room? I just want to be sure I was not alone up here. So anyway, thank you for your representation as well. I think I speak for all of us when I say that we're here. There's no secret sauce for what we're about to work through. But if you're a lender in this part of the country, chances are you have an ag portfolio, and it's going to take one relationship at a time. There is no secret to it. And I wanted to provide today, kind of how the lender's going to be looking at it, give you our perspective. Before I jump into that, these are the 4 people you need to be having frequent contact with: your crop insurance provider, your property insurance provider, the local FSA office, and they did a great job of presenting the various programs available to you. It's wide ranging. I would be sure to go and meet with your local FSA representative and explore all these options that may apply to you. And then obviously your lender. And I can't emphasize enough, communication during this time is the key. Other contacts, obviously SBA, FEMA. If you own a business, most of your ag-related needs are probably going to flow up through USDA. If you own any other type of business, it's my understanding they really want you to check with the SBA first. And there are you can find a disaster assistance page for SBA and FEMA online fairly easy. So when you get ready to meet with your lender, here are a few tidbits. Go ahead and assess all your damage, which I'm sure you've done: crops, equipment, infrastructure. Again, these are things that are going to help your meeting be more effective when the time comes. Document and take pictures like the others have mentioned. Another thing that's key is go ahead and assess your current working capital. Gentleman mentioned earlier there's no worse time for a hurricane in relative to pecan production. Well, there's really no worse time for a hurricane from an operating line standpoint either, because a lot of times those lines have been drawn at this point of the year. You've got a lot invested in the crop. But go ahead and look and see if there's any availability there. Proceeds received from the sale of commodities. Fortunately, 70% or so of the peanut crop was already harvested. Want to take note of that. Corn, any other type of commodity you may have that you've received payment on. Recent FSA payments were received in October. Dividends you may be receiving from other investments, cotton gins, shelling plants, etc. Get your estimated crop insurance proceeds if that's available, and your property insurance proceeds. Go ahead and try to have the entire picture as best as you can when you meet with the lender, and it'll make the discussion a lot easier and more fruitful. Assess your current liabilities for the next 12 to 18 months. Look at your operating lines, your open accounts, and that's key. Really pay close attention to those open accounts. Those types of entities aren't reporting. Your farm supply businesses, your chemical companies. Go ahead and take a hard look at that and gather that information prior to meeting with the lender. Equipment debt, real estate, and obviously personal living. Try to have a big picture of all of it when you come to meet with the lender. Again, initiate communication. Hopefully, if you're a customer with Southwest Georgia Farm Credit and you're here today, you've already spoken with a relationship manager, because that's the first thing we did the day after the storm was we started calling customers. We try to be proactive with this and try to help in any way we can. Organize your financial records that I mentioned prior to the visit if you can. Obviously, I know that's easier said than done. And then ask the lender to validate what you've assessed and then work together to try to come up with a solution. And the lender does have options. That's no secret. You know, some of the options may include additional operating funds when adequate, you know, loan restructure, debt consolidation, payment modifications, and then obviously we can use the guaranteed program also that you heard more about earlier. We have options. Farm Credit's been here more than 100 years. We plan to be here another 100 years. And we're going to take it one relationship at a time. We're here to help you get back on your feet. There's easy solutions for 12 to 18 months out. A lot of the long-term implications we've seen from the pecan and timber damage, it could be, you know, it's going to be more difficult, but we're committed to working through it. Now, on the flip side, some things I'll go ahead and give you, you know, to be full transparency here, what to be prepared for. You are going to have lenders. There's going to be relationships that additional collaterals need, possibly some joint checks to get through these times, assignments of proceeds, just things like that that you're going to have to work through as a partner in what I deem to be a partnership between the lender and the borrower to work through these times. So again, very sorry is what you're going through right now. But I can tell you, as a lender, we are committed to working through these relationships one at a time to try to find a solution for our borrowers to keep them producing and keep them on their feet. So with that, does anyone have any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Paxton. So our last speaker before we'll take some additional questions for this group, but we have Jennifer Dunn, who's Regional Services Administrator with the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health.
I'm short. Good afternoon. I didn't realize I was going to be speaking in front of this many people, but I'm glad to see everybody here. I am from the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, and a lot of people said, "What are you doing here?" We had a table set up in the back, and I'm a resident of Thomas County. My dad is a farmer in early Calhoun County, and my mom lives in Dougherty County. We've all been affected by what's been happening. A lot of people are upset, stressed out, not sure what to do. It might not be you in this room, but it might be somebody that you work with. And so as in my professional life, but also in my personal life, we just want you to know as the Department of Behavioral Health that there is somebody you can talk to. We do have crisis counselors. We have people that you probably know in the counties that you live in. I have a team of people that works with me. We cover the 24 counties of Southwest Georgia. I do have a table in the back, and I just want to make sure you all know that if you need to talk to somebody, if we're here to talk to. Literally, Paxton stole my line. I was going to be super quick because I don't want to be in front of any of our officials here, but if you have any questions for me, Rachel is in the back with me. Please let us know, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thanks.
Our last speaker of this afternoon is Congressman Austin Scott, and he's making his way up here. Would you like the wireless mic? That mic will work. Yes.
Can I shut this?
Yes, you can.
I have been listening to a lot of the comments that have made, and I want you to know I live in Chula, Georgia. October the 10th at 11:55, I got off the Sunsweet exit, and there was a cotton picker running on the east side of that exit. May have been someone in this room running that picker. I don't know who it was, but I took a picture of it. They had a module in the field. They were doing the best they could to get the crop in. The rain was just starting to come in, and went down the road a little bit past what used to be Branch's store right there, and took a picture of that crop. And that crop, which I believe is the same farmers, it was, you know, you don't know till you pick it, but it looked real good. Now it was irrigated, but I'm betting it was 3 bales to the acre right there at it. I came back the next morning at 8 o'clock. I took a picture of that same field in the same location, and a little later that day is when we started talking with farmers about the losses through the area. And it depends on obviously how close you were to the storm in what the loss is, and it depends on what the crop is. I mean, cotton in our area, up here in the Tift County area, took it on the chin, certainly more than anything else in Tift County. As you move southwest, I don't think it matters what you had. Whether it was pine trees or pecan trees or cotton, the losses down there in some cases are total, no matter what. And so I want you to know, I know you're hurting. I was happy to have President Trump down. We had Vice President Pence down. We have been in conversation with our senators, our other elected officials. I speak with Martha Roby from Alabama, who represents that southeast portion of Alabama. Spoken with her twice today, and be talking with her after this meeting too about how we help our growers. The one thing that I can tell you that I have a very real sense of urgency on is the liquidity and how we get the money, especially to our traditional row crop producers, as fast as possible. As fast as possible. I've heard it from lenders. We've talked to bankers as well as producers, and I want to just tell you what I think will happen as we go back into Washington. There's already a fund that has a balance in it. It doesn't mean we won't have to do another appropriations for this disaster, but there is a disaster fund with a balance in it. And I will tell you that somewhere between November the 13th and December the 7th, I expect that we will take the last disaster bill that was for 2017, and we'll strike the date 2017 and we'll insert 2018. Now, that won't be the end of it. And what I want you to know about the 2017 payments that we absolutely know won't work for 2018 for our area is the WHIP payment timing. It is, here we are, October, mid-October of 2018, and only 6% of the 2017 WHIP payments have been paid to our producers. Our losses were not as great in 17 as they are now. Our losses are so big now that if our farmers don't get a payment until October of 19, they won't be farming in October of 19. And that is the message that I have conveyed to the leadership of this country, to our president, to the leadership of the House. It is the message that we're carrying to the Senate, is that we have to have the payments sooner rather than later, or we're not only going to get hit for 17, which we had losses from storms, we're going to lose the majority of the 18 cotton crop, certainly, but we'll lose the 19 crop too, because it won't ever be planted. And so we've gotten pretty good response. And one of the things that we have suggested is that as your crop insurer is out there, and those of you who have crop insurance, when you're meeting with the people that are doing the adjusting, I will tell you, the more they can give you, the more data they can give you, the better off you're going to be in the long run, and the more the people that work at these agencies are going to be able to help you in the long run. But it seems to me that since the crop insurance agent can calculate what the WHIP loss, the WHIP payment should be right there on the spot when they're inspecting the farm, that we should be able to take what they calculate that loss to be and either pay it through them, us pay the WHIP loss through them, or us take that calculation and allow that at our farm services agencies. Obviously, there would have to be an audit trail. Allow that for us to use to go ahead and make the payment at that stage. We can't get these payments October of 19, or there won't be a 19 crop at all on the production agriculture. I've talked with some of the people in timber. I've talked with a lot of people that are pecan growers. It's not that simple there. I'll tell you, I am still open to suggestions. I think the USDA has done a good job of explaining to you what is available today. I think our forestry department has given good advice to you about what you need to do if you have these losses. And we're going to continue to work with them, and we're going to continue to listen, and we're going to continue to find a way to try to help those of you that are in those types of production, the timber, the pecans, the other things. We've done some things for citrus in Florida in the past. Those things for citrus, they may help us, but you can't say that they work for us in pecans and in timber because it just takes us longer on those crops to start gathering a product. But I want you to know that I heard a lot in this meeting, and I want you to know that people, we know you're hurting. We're hurting with you, and there are a lot of people that are up there working to try to make this thing happen sooner rather than later from the standpoint of the disaster payment. The urgency that I know is out there is with the liquidity. We need to get you liquidity as soon as we possibly can. And so the timeline I expect we'll be working on November 13th to December 7th would be the first piece of legislation that would come through dealing with the disaster, and then obviously trying to get the payments to people within hopefully within 2 months of that. And if we're going to be able to do it that fast, that means we got to do some things different. That means we got to be able to use calculations from the crop insurers for the losses. And I'll mention the one thing. The reason FSA, the reason we're only at 6% is because the person who was hired to put the computer program together did not allow for the information, your data, to be automatically populated into the system. And so our FSA people are having to manually input every single line. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I hope we never do business with that programmer again, and I hope we sue to get our money back. I'll try to take a couple of questions. I know the Farm Service Agency people may know more than I do on the specific issues, but I know you're hurting. I know liquidity is an issue.